The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio. This lovely evening with my co-host this evening, Nyssa. Hi, Nyssa, are you there?
Hi, I'm here, Tajs.
Okay. And I'd like to just introduce our guest this evening. She's a well-known dream expert and best-selling author. She's also a certified clinical hypnotherapist, inspirational speaker, TV personality, and founder of Dream Life Coach Training and the Dream Project, Kelly Sullivan Walden. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to join you guys.
It's good to have you on. I have been watching some of your shows, some of your videos on YouTube, and this is a subject I'm really interested in, so it'd be good to talk to you about it.
Well, with a show title like Divine Truth, then this opens up the perfect portal for that. So,
all right. The first thing I really wanted to ask you is, like, everyone has a different understanding of what dreams are. What are dreams to you?
Oh, wow. I could talk about that for ages. Let's see. What do I feel like saying at this moment? There's so many different ways to answer that. To me, dreams are a window into what's really going on. If we contrast our dream vision and juxtapose it to our normal daytime vision, we could say that our daytime vision is pretty logical and grounded and linear, and it all makes sense to our ego. And from the American Association for Hypnosis, they say that our logical mind is about 12% of our mind's power, versus our subconscious mind or our dreaming mind, which is 88% of our mind's power. So our dreams show us what's in our blind spot. It shows us what's above us, beneath us, on all sides. It's what we missed by day, what tried to get our attention by day, but we moved too fast and we skipped over it. So our dreams catch us when we are we're a captive audience, because we're laying there. We really can't go anywhere. And they are a tricky, sneaky, but brilliant and genius way that our higher self communicates to us to tell us what we need to know in order to become more healthy, balanced, even maybe enlightened versions of ourselves.
Right. So it's sort of like our subconscious processing the information that we've received during the day. That all happens during our dream time. Yeah,
exactly. And then some.
Do you have any advice on how to store, basically record it in a way so that you will remember your dreams more often, so that you can actually access this information? Because I find sometimes I'll remember when I first wake up, for the first half an hour to an hour, I'll remember my dreams in great detail, but then as the day goes on, it all fades.
Oh, wow. Well, you're one of the lucky ones if you can remember them for that long. Most people have a window of about 3 to 5 minutes in the morning. If they don't write them down within that window, then they're gone. Even if it was epic, even if it was life-changing, even if it had the numbers to the winning lottery ticket, no matter how compelling it is, if we don't write them down for most people within the first 3 to 5 minutes, then they're just gone. So my recommendation is to have it be the very first thing that you do. I mean, obviously, most of us have to use the bathroom, but that's fine. But just keep that in mind, like have the very first thought on your mind, what was I dreaming about last night? And try to not move a muscle until you have at least some part of your dream, whether it be just a snippet or a little bit of a feeling or a strong image. My dogs are going wild as I talk about this. I don't know if you can hear all that.
Yeah.
She gets so excited when I talk about dreams. But if you can retain one piece at least of your dream time, and you can write that down, and I suggest that you do it either in a journal or in an app. There's some really great dream recording apps available that are free.
Oh, brilliant.
You can, if you get in the habit of doing that for the very first thing, and it only needs to take 5 minutes. So if you have to get up a little bit early, then so be it. And don't let the alarm clock get in your way. A lot of people say, well, the moment the alarm clock blares, then there goes my dreams because it's so loud. So I always tell people to set their alarm for 15 minutes before their alarm would have gone off, and do a less jolting kind of alarm as a pre-wake up call. So you can do something with chimes or something that's lovely music. So hopefully you'll hear that, and then you can get up and write down your dreams, and then you can turn off that loud, crazy alarm that's going to jolt you awake, if you're able to get yourself up a few minutes earlier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever worked out why we only remember our dreams for just a few minutes after we wake up? Is it basically because the subconscious sort of like dissipates, does it, when you're like waking up? And so
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting phenomenon, because this, we could talk about this also for hours. One way of answering that is that the place in the brain that our dreams take place in, primarily our visual cortex, our limbic system, our emotional brain. This is usually short-term memory stuff. This is stuff that happens. It's usually quick. It's not the stuff that we store necessarily for long term. So we have to go out of our way to store it. But also, it's like, I used to run track. I don't know if either of you ever ran track, but I would run the race where we would have to pass the baton to each other in the mile relay. And I often relate to dreams, and the way that we dream is passing the baton. So while we're awake during the day, our logical mind has the baton and it's running the show. And then as soon as we get exhausted and we cross that little threshold, we pass the baton to our sleeping mind, our dreaming mind, and then it takes over, and it's much more wild and crazy and unabashed than our logical mind. But the moment it's time to pass the baton back, it's like we switch brains. We switch from being emotional and more metaphoric and symbolic into being more structured and logical, because it's important in order for us to survive that we be grounded and we think logically in our waking lives. So the baton is getting passed, and what we do when we remember dreams and we write them down is we're slowing down the baton passing. We're slowing down that process so that we can catch a little bit of what just happened and take it into what's going to happen next. So why dreams are hard to remember is because it's just a different part of the mind that is taking over. And from some perspective, my first book was called I Had the Strangest Dream, the Dreamer's Dictionary for the 21st Century. And I called it that because that's usually the first thing people say when they wake up in the morning. I had the strangest dream, because to our logical mind, the part that has the baton by day, in the daylight, it looks at what just happened in the nighttime dream as crazy. It doesn't make any sense. It's weird. But when you're in the dream and you have the baton and you're in the dream, it doesn't seem weird at all. It makes complete sense while you're in it, because you're in that emotional kind of. So it's really looking at things from two, almost like we have a split personality or dual lives. We have two completely different ways of functioning, whether in the waking dream or in the nighttime dream. So that's kind of where the information slips through the cracks unless we go out of our way to remember it.
Is that also because we see things through symbolism in dreams instead of the literal? So, for instance, I kept having this recurring dream where I was in a house, and in the bathroom there was terrible issues with the plumbing. Like the bath was blocked and overflowing. The water wasn't clean. And when I looked into it, I found out the water is symbolic of emotions. And the bathroom in a house, if you ever think of a house, the house can be you, and each room is a different aspect of yourself. So the bathroom would be your spiritual and emotional hygiene. It would be how you are processing your emotions and your spiritual self. And if there's water that isn't flowing, it's not in currency, it's not in flow, something's blocked, you're not facing it, you're not clearing it out. But if you didn't know that and you just had a dream about that, you would just dismiss it and you'd think, this is ridiculous, I'm not going to write down that I dreamt that I had a bath that needed cleaning, you know, or you would just clean your bathroom when you woke up, you know, you just wouldn't associate the two.
Exactly. Wow, Nyssa, I'm so impressed, and you're so fluent in the language of dreams. That was really good. That was excellent. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly it. And I think it's interesting. It's always fun to look at the word play, like it's a game. And often we refer to our private parts as our plumbing, you know, and that's kind of funny, like, oh, my plumbing stopped up lately, or wow, my plumbing is hyperactive these days. So it's just kind of funny. And, you know, there's so many ways to look at a dream. And I know one person that I often connect with, she's so literal about her dream. She says, well, if that were my dream, then I would think I need to really clean my plumbing. I need to go and hire a plumber. And I would say on one level, that might be true, because sometimes there is the very literal aspect. And if a dream is a diamond that has multiple facets, then one facet of that diamond might be incredibly literal. So it doesn't hurt to check things out from a literal perspective. I know one person dreamt about walking down an alley and getting jumped by a guy that had a very specific look, and he looked like a very innocent guy, but in her dream he turned on her and he hurt her. And I thought, well, if you interpreted that symbolically, it could be this masculine aspect of you that seems so kind and nice, but that's really like a critic that's going to hurt you. It's the masculine driven part of you. But a week later, she found herself walking down a street that was very similar to her dream, and saw a guy that was very friendly looking, that looked just like the guy in her dream. And she was walking on the side that he was on, and all of a sudden she got covered in chills, and she went to the opposite side and she walked past and ignored him, which was not her character. She's a very friendly person, but she was like, oh my God, this might have literally been the guy that my dream was forecasting. So you can do both. Right, exactly. So I recommend that you that you look at both sides. And if it doesn't make sense, one side or the other, like if you just had your plumbing fixed and your bathroom is perfectly fine, then consider that it's probably only symbolic, and check out where you might be stopped up emotionally, where maybe I would ask myself, where do I need a good cry, but I'm stopping myself because I think it's ridiculous, or I just don't have time, or I'm trying to just put on a good face, and I don't want to admit to my vulnerability. And where do I need to let myself just let it out, or call a friend or a therapist or a journal and just let myself just take time to hurl. And maybe I'm backed up. So I would do that. And if that doesn't work, then go on to the next place and see, just keep asking the question. Even if none of those answers seem to make sense, then just at least be in the inquiry. What is the wisdom of this dream trying to tell me? What is it that I can't see? And just be willing to be uncomfortable in the not knowing. Get comfortable being uncomfortable with not knowing, and hold the space open for that revelation, because it always comes. I think sometimes we're a little bit too quick to go, here it is. This is what it means. And I think it would do us well if we could think about what we think it means quickly, and that's fine, but then also be open to what else it might be.
Yeah, because I a few years ago I taught myself lucid dreaming. What I would do is during the day I would look at my hands when I'm awake and normal during the day, look at my hands and have the thought process of, am I awake? Am I asleep? Am I awake? Am I asleep? And it just makes the brain say, am I awake? Am I asleep? It just asks the question. And if you do it like say 3 times a day or something like that, then when you are asleep, because it's a habit, you look at your
Yes.
hands when you're asleep, do exactly the same thing. You're asking the same question, and then bam, you're lucid dreaming, because then you've switched on your conscious mind while you're unconscious. And then what I would do is, I have a house. I always it's like self-diagnostics. I'll give myself a house will appear, and it'll either be my house, which is me, or it'll be someone else, or I'll think of a person and it will be a house, but I'll know energetically that it's that person. And each room will represent a different aspect of the person, and the layout of the house is important, and where the house is, what sort of house it is, what condition it's in, and what condition each room is in. Because each thing, like the kitchen is like how you nourish yourself. Is it fully stocked? Has it got appliances that work? And if it's a way of like self-diagnostics, just to see what's happening. Who is in your I think you call it reception. We call it a porch in England, but it's basically the entrance of your house. Is there anyone there who is either blocking your exit, or isn't actually coming into the house, but is just there? And that can be symbolic of someone who's either trying to enter and you don't really want them to, or someone who you're trying to get them to go, but they won't completely go, so they're in your reception area of the house. So that's important. It's also important what you see when you look outside the windows, because that's your outward look. That's what you're looking out onto and things. And also, I even one time I had my children were really young, and I'd envisioned that at the bottom of the house, it was a house with like 3 floors, and at the bottom of the house was like this, like it was all luxury, but it was like Disney stuff, where it was all, because I was looking after children, and it was like in a basement, and there was no windows, and I couldn't get out because I was submerged looking after my children, and it was all luxury, it was all nice, but I couldn't get out. And what I saw was the ladder. There was like a spiral staircase which would take me up out of that one, and I could see myself with college books and work stuff coming out this spiral staircase, and right at the top, there was all different layers, and right at the top is like a Zen garden, and that's like the ultimate. That's like the ultimate top layer. And to get there, you have to work through all the other layers to get to the Zen garden, where everything's peaceful and perfect and everything's sorted. But there was, in the middle layer, there was like an exit out to like go out, and that was like working and learning and independent, all the stuff that you have to do when you're not looking after kids. But at the time, this was when, because I've got twins and a toddler and a 13-year-old, so loads of kids.
Oh my God. Wow.
I know, but at the time, my little ones were so small that I was literally just 24/7 looking after them. So it was like this, I was stuck in this like luxury basement that had their like luxury, they had luxury little mini 4-poster beds and a big TV that was showing kiddie films and stuff. All like velvet. It was all like velvet, and it was all lovely. It was all really cozy, but there was no way for me to get up the spiral staircase to like go to college or to work, or do you see what I mean? Because that's where it was. And then as time progressed, the house changed. And if I have a crisis in my life, I'll find myself in a dilapidated house. And then I can see in the house which rooms need attention, which ones. And sometimes rooms will appear out of nowhere. There'll be a new room, and that is basically when your perception expands. All of a sudden you have a new avenue to explore, a new facet of yourself that opens up, and you think, wow, I didn't know I had this room. I was stuck in that living room thinking that's all there was. All of a sudden I've had an extension.
Wow. Nyssa, so all of this is done in your lucid dreaming that you taught yourself how to do by looking at your hands in the day.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That is really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that it's really valuable.
Hope it will help someone. Yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, you just made it sound so simple. I mean, I know for myself, I lucid dream on accident, like, every once in a while, but it's not necessarily something that I try to do. And I feel really lucky that the the times that I've had. But as a practice, that's a really easy way for people to get in. And also meditation, I think, is just because it can, if you meditate in the day, it helps you to have control over where your thoughts go. So you can ride a thought a little further than just a second in time. Because often we go, oh, I think I want to go, oh, wait, what's that? We're like, where's the squirrel? Our attention is all over the place. But if we meditate, we can kind of hone our thoughts a little bit. So that's another practice that people can do for a few minutes. But I think that looking at the hands and developing the habit is probably the easiest getting in place for people. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. People are going to find that very useful, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Kelly, I wanted to ask you more about why do most people not remember their dreams? I mean, I have a problem remembering my dreams, and what can you do to improve that so you do remember your dreams a lot more?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think, okay, here's actually my sneaky shortcut for remembering dreams. To get in the habit of writing something down immediately when you wake up in the morning. If it's not a dream, what is your first thought upon awakening? Is there a song in your mind? Are you thinking about a friend from high school? Are you, like usually the thoughts that we have in the morning are related to our dreams, even if it still isn't a dream. But before we start having thoughts about all the things that we need to do that day and where we need to go, and there's usually that little gray area where we're thinking in a more expansive way. So even if you're not remembering a dream per se, if the very first thing you do is honor your dream time by writing something down, and you get in the habit of that and you create the space for that, eventually you're going to have a dream that you're going to have the space already created for yourself to write it down. But another thing that you can do is on the other end. So think of it like a dream sandwich. The first part of the dream, before you go to sleep, you set a strong intention. I call it a dream declaration, because a declaration is an intention on steroids. And so a few minutes before you go to sleep, you meditate for a moment, or even as you're closing your eyes going to sleep, you just it's almost like you're shouting out to the universe silently to yourself, I want to remember my dreams upon awakening. Help me remember my dreams upon awakening. Help make them vivid so I will remember them. So often if you set that strong intention, then in other words, that's like taking one step towards the dreams, towards the dream maker. And if you do that, then it takes 10 steps towards you. And then on the other end of the dream sandwich, so there's the one piece of bread where you set the intention, then you have your dreams. And then when you wake up in the morning, if the very first thing you do before you check your email, before you go on social media, if the very first thing you do is write down your dream or write down your first thoughts, then if you do that after a couple of weeks, you're going to start remembering dreams.
Right. Okay. That's good advice.
Even if, now keep this in mind, even if it doesn't seem to make any sense, just like Nyssa was talking about the backed up toilet or the backed up bathroom.
Yeah.
You might think, oh, come on, is this the only dream I remember? This is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. I'm going to throw that in the discard heap. But no, whatever it is, even if it seems so crazy, write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down. That builds the muscle.
Right. Okay. When I watched some of your videos, you explain like the three types of dreams: the angel, the ego, and the caveman. Can you sort of explain a little bit about what each of those are and how, and and what their meanings are in as far as dreams go?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I think that video was the Ricky Lake interview, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
that was
right,
fun. I got to be in bed with Ricky Lake and Miss America.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, wait, was that real? Okay, anyway. My husband was like, oh my God, that was cool. So the three kinds of dreams: angel, ego, caveman. This was my way of, I'm always seeking to find the easiest way that I can pass on to people to work with dreams so that, it matches my mission. I'm on a mission to awaken the world to the power of dreams. So one way is to categorize the dreams that you have by putting them in one of these three categories. So the angel dreams, these are the really lovely dreams. These are the happiest dreams that we have. These are the dreams where you feel like you're flying, where you're maybe connecting with a departed loved one and you're getting some kind of direct transmission of wisdom, or some people hear a voice that is guiding them. Or it can be a dream where you may win the lottery and you feel so lucky, you feel blessed. It's like one of those high vibrational dreams that you wish never ever was going to end. So
Yeah.
that's one of those kind of dreams, and those dreams connect you with your higher self. They give you a higher sense of your possibilities, and it really, I always say, milk these dreams. Do not take them lying down. Use the energy and the essence of that dream as a meditation that you marinate in throughout your day, as a way to be able to up level your vibration. So the second kind of dreams are ego dreams. And these are not bad. We all have an ego, even if we're spiritual, or no matter who we are, we have an ego. And these dreams show up. The kind of dreams that these are would be the ones where we are really trying to look good and trying to not look bad. Where, for example, we show up naked in public somewhere and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I hope nobody notices that I forgot my pants and I'm at work. Oh my God. So these are the dreams about being in public and not being prepared, or you're on a stage and you have a microphone and the lights on you, but you completely forget the words to the song you were about to sing. It's these being in public and either being prepared and it being amazing and getting a standing ovation, or having somebody give you a compliment or a raise or an award, or it's something where you feel like, oh my God, they caught me red-handed. I'm busted. So these dreams, if it's the scary kind of ego dreams, these are usually telling you you're going to be called to task. You're going to be up to something. So it would be smart of you to become prepared. If you have a dream that you're in school, here's a popular one where you're supposed to take a test, but you didn't study for it, or you can't find your class or your locker combination. These are all about how to fit in class and how to in the school of life. So we'll put those in the ego category. And then the other kind, the caveman dreams, this is about more of the base aspect of ourselves. This is where we're in fight or flight. And these are also would be considered our sexual dreams, that are very much about like unga bunga. I want you, and I don't care if you're married, or I don't care I don't care if you're a man, woman, or whatever you are. I'm just like, wow, you're hot. Let's go do it. And you like throw all, like, your animal self takes over. And even animal dreams would be considered caveman dreams, because they're connecting us with a primal, natural, instinctive aspect of ourselves. So most dreams that we have will fit into either one of these three categories. And by putting them into one of the categories, it helps to give you a sense of what your dream is helping you to know about yourself, or to get insight into. And then by definition, then you kind of know what to do with that dream, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So what happens if you're having like recurring dreams? Like if you're always having ego dreams, or you're always having caveman dreams? Why is
Right.
that? Is that? Well, I suppose if you're always having angel dreams, that's probably a good thing. But
Right.
um,
Right. Well, I'll just say one aside about that. I love the book, The Dark Side of Light Chasers. Debbie Ford wrote that book. Was a spiritual teacher that passed away a number of years ago. And the theme around that is some of the lightest people, some of the most beautiful, kind, loving beings on the planet sometimes have some of the most violent dreams. I've talked to so many sweet, good people that are like, why am I dreaming about killing people? Or why am I being chased by these gruesome beings? And I think sometimes the dreams that you have don't necessarily tell you that it's not necessarily about something wrong with you. For example, it's not,
right.
if you're having a bunch of caveman dreams that are scary, it could be that you're working something out for yourself so that you can let more light in. Or in the case of one tattoo artist that I met in Mexico, who was the kindest, most loving soul you've ever met. And this guy said every night he has the most terrifying dreams. And in doing a session with him, we realized that so many of his family members were just so broken spiritually, and so many of the people that he loved are so messed up that it seemed like he was doing the dirty laundry for his family because they couldn't do it for themselves.
Right.
So sometimes that's the case where you're it's continuing. You have a recurring dream because you're not done. If you're recurring, it's because the cycle isn't complete. And if you remember that you're having this recurring dream, then on a conscious level, you can apply some of your conscious level awareness, like, wow, I must have unfinished business here. What can I do to, for example, if you're having dreams about some kind of anger issue towards a certain person, you might say, wow, I'm still really mad about this thing. Maybe I should forgive that person or forgive myself or do something that helps to resolve the issue in your waking life, so that you can help it. It's almost like it's stuck on repeat, like a record. Some people that are listening might not remember when we used to have records, but they would skip because there was some kind of trouble in that spot. So sometimes with your conscious mind, you can help lift the needle and move it so that it can move on, so it comes out of that pattern. Also, another way of looking at recurring dreams are that it's like, I like to say that it's like the cosmic highlighter pen telling you this area is important. Pay attention, do something about this. Don't ignore this. And if you pay attention, you're going to get a breakthrough. That we have a bunch of these dreams that are dreams that are recurring, that have been written about in Chicken Soup for the Soul, dreams and premonitions, where people are like, why am I having this dream? This one woman kept having a dream about this horrible accident that happened, and all of a sudden in her waking life, a car just like the one in her dream is driving really fast down the road, and instead of speeding up, she took heed of the advice from the dream and she slowed down and avoided a horrible accident. So our dreams, we need to know that they're always on our side. If they're recurring and they're scary, it's not because there's something wrong with us. It's usually something we just need to pay attention to so that we can continue to have as healthy as possible of lives that we're living.
Okay. I also want to ask you, like, how real are dreams? Because some people, they have visions in their dreams that actually come true. So they dream about something, and then maybe like a few days later or a few weeks later, that actually happens for real. Is that how have you come across that, and how does that work then?
I happen to have come across that a lot. Yeah, the first Chicken Soup for the Soul book was Dreams and Premonitions. So we got a lot of those, thousands of people from all over the world sending us their dream stories. And now I'm working on the next Chicken Soup for the Soul book. It'll be Dreams, Premonitions, and the Unexplainable. And I'm blown away at the premonitions that I'm hearing about. And so I know this phenomenon is real, not from just my own personal experience and from my experience working with clients, but now I'm hearing from people again from all over the world that have these uncanny experiences, and they're, so I can't help but be impressed by our dreams. I talked to a shaman, a Native American shaman, who said that his belief is that everything happens first in a dream. And if we're wise and we're aware and we pay attention, then we don't have to live out the pain and the drama in our waking lives as much as we do. These dreams are helping us to see these things, whether they be good or bad, so that we can prepare ourselves so we can have a richer experience. But we don't know necessarily that they're premonitory until something happens later. So I always tell people the best advice that you can give yourself is to do what I said earlier, look at dreams from both a literal and a symbolic perspective, and imagine, ask yourself this. If the dream resonates at all as something that could or might happen in your waking life, like, are you going to be walking down a street that looks kind of like that? Or do you know somebody that looks like that? Or do you have a job where you might get a promotion and you're dreaming about this? Is that something that's important to you? Is there any resemblance to reality happening in the dream, then consider that it might be a premonition. And if so, it's not necessarily telling you what will happen. It's saying this is what might happen if something else doesn't interfere. So if it's negative, don't feel like you have no choice in the matter. You can oftentimes prevent something negative from happening or something painful from happening. But if it's a positive dream, then it may be helping you to get into position so that when this positive thing happens to you, you don't run past it too fast or you don't sabotage yourself. So they're always on your side, no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah, I find that side very interesting because, there's a lot of things about psychics and telepathy and things like that where it's linked to maybe your higher self or your subconscious.
Yeah.
So it manifests in your dreams. But this also goes into things like, I don't know if you know about things like astral travel, out-of-body experiences and that type of thing. Have you had any kind of experiences like that?
I did. I've had a couple of experiences, but one was really profound. I'm writing about it to be in my next book. And it was about a near-death experience that also was an out-of-body experience. And it was the most phenomenal thing that's ever happened to me. It was quite extensive and interestingly, I found that when I came back from this, and it was very sudden, I didn't expect it. I wasn't trying to make it happen. It just spontaneously happened. And it was scary at first until I surrendered to it. And then it was the most ecstatic thing. And I felt like I learned the secrets to the universe in that time. And then I came back and I was like, oh, I wish I was still there. But, oh gosh, I lost track of what I was just going to say. When I start thinking about this stuff, I kind of go away. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. Who are you and why am I here? What's the point?
Yeah, you're talking about your out of body experience.
Yeah. What I was going to say, here it is that when I came back from it, I found that this isn't so different than dreaming. The only thing is that it's actually not so different from a lucid dream because there's an awareness that you're going somewhere else, that there's an awareness that it's a non-ordinary experience and that the sky is the limit. There's something amazing about being awake during such a thing and not just being unconscious for it. So there is definitely a relationship between dreams, out-of-body experiences, lucid dreaming, and near-death experiences. They all definitely kind of blend together. What about you? Have either of you had one of those experiences or multiple?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Go on, Taj.
Yeah. Well, I've had one where, some people talk about they float above their body and that type of that. I never really had any kind of dream like that, but I had a dream where, well, I don't know if it was dream or out of body experience where it was dark and I was walking around my apartment and I couldn't work out if it was a dream or it felt very vivid. But then I sort of I wondered why it was so dark and I tried to switch the light on and I couldn't turn the light on. It was like my hand just couldn't turn the light on. And then I sort of turned around and looked behind me and I could see myself in the bed asleep. And I suddenly realized what was happening. I was like, I wasn't actually like physically in my body anymore. I was like outside walking around my apartment, which was a bit weird. And obviously I couldn't turn the light switch off because I didn't have a physical body. That's why I couldn't turn the light switch off. So it was very weird.
Wow. So what did that do for you? Like, what did you do with that?
I wasn't sure what to make of it really. It's happened to me a couple of times and I can't really explain if there's a meaning behind it or anything like that. I don't know what your opinion would be if
well, my opinion is like on the most basic level, it's an experience that you're more than your body. It's an experience that you are connected to something larger than just the 3D that's in front of you. And that there's a spirit of you that could go into places where your body can't necessarily. So even if it's just moving 1 inch or just across the room as your etheric self, it's like one step for mankind, one step for man, one step for mankind. It's like one step outside of non-ordinary reality is really a quantum leap into a whole new realm of possibilities about who you are as a being. And it's like it just opens this, it's like the ceiling is lifted, and all of a sudden, even if you don't explore every possibility, the ceiling is open for a period of time. And that's incredibly thrilling. What about you, Nyssa? What was yours? It sounded like you've had something special happen.
Well, I did have, I did we've got quite a few to choose from. That's the problem. But I did have a near-death experience, and I know exactly what you mean. It is euphoria, and it is just love on the other side. People shouldn't be scared at all. And it is like it's layered. It's like layered like an onion. It's like a mind within a mind within a mind. But there was one experience, because it was a dream. But it was a repetitive dream that kept happening, where I was in a car. I was in like a green estate family car, which wasn't a car that I owned. And in the back seat was a little girl, and I didn't have a daughter at the time, who was like a toddler just playing with some toys. And we're driving along, and then all of a sudden, this very specific looking Mercedes van crashed into the side of us, and I felt myself die. And this kept happening over and over again, and I kept drawing the Mercedes logo badge, and I was telling everyone, I was saying, look, it's like half red, half blue, it's very strange looking, and this is the badge, this is what's going to happen if anything happens to me. And I specifically thought to myself, don't ever buy a green car, don't ever buy a green car. And I didn't. I had a blue car at the time. And I was driving to Hemel, and there's quite a few roundabouts there. And as I was driving along, I saw this car with the woman in the front and the little girl in the back pass me. And I thought that gave me shivers. But then at the roundabout, I saw the actual Mercedes vehicle was coming. And it was kind of like behind me. So I kind of flashed her to pull her over, because I just didn't want them anywhere near each other. And I flashed them, pulled her over, and she was pulled over. She was very angry with me, because she was, why did you pull me over? And I said, I think your exhaust is hanging off or something. And I was just buying time, because I wanted that vehicle out the way. And then I was talking to her, and then all of a sudden, about 500 yards or so down the road, there was another roundabout, and all of a sudden I could hear commotion. We could hear a commotion, and we're like, what's that, because she was busy shouting at me, why did you pull me over, I'm gonna be late, blah blah blah. There was an accident at the following roundabout. If I'd have let her go, if I hadn't have pulled it over, what I had been dreaming over and over again for about 4 months would have happened to her. Now, in order for me to experience that, I would have had to have quantum leaped to her in that experience, which would have been in the future, and in her body, in her consciousness, looking through her eyes at her daughter and feeling her thoughts and feelings as she was being killed, as that truck was going into her. So that really does prove that we are all fractals of each other. We're all one. It is a quantum holographic universe, and consciousness is non-local. It's not in your brain. It's a field. It's a conscious field, and that's why when you have when you die, you have a near-death experience. That's what you feel, and it's like the fabric that holds it all together is very loving. It's very, and that's why, like you said, when you have these experiences, it is on your side. It's not just to scare you; it's to help you, because it's on your side, because it is love, or that field of consciousness does operate love. But we've warped the whole idea of love into like Valentine's Day kind of like commercialism, kind of like, get married and then get divorced kind of thing. But it's not, it's nothing like that at all. It's like a force that holds everything together.
Oh, that's so funny. Gosh, there was a movie that came out a few years ago where the couple, it's a romantic comedy, and they, instead of saying they love each other, they just say peanut butter, because it's like, it's such an ordinary thing, like peanut butter, back to you. Like, it was like, oh my God, like, love you, whatever, pass the jam, you know? But it's kind of, this love that you're talking about is like capital L love.
Yeah,
that
it's a force, holds everything
yes,
together.
yeah, yeah. And if we, I've talked to some people that have had big dreams, big near-death experiences, or big out-of-body experiences, and often the comment is, wow, this is so amazing. I just wish it would always be like this. I wish that I could always feel this way. I wish I could maintain that vibration always. And it's so frustrating to have to like forget about it and to become ordinary again. And my perspective is that every time we talk about these experiences, it's like we're bringing them back. We're honoring them in some way. It's like we're memorializing them and helping them to grow and become bigger. It's like they're important stories to tell. I mean, we are storytellers. Us human beings are innately storytelling. And if we're not telling stories that wake us up and that inspire us, then we might be telling stories that are disempowering, or that are gossip oriented, or that make us feel small, and or we're talking about politics or things that are just that we can feel so powerless about. So I think the more we talk about this, the more we talk about these kind of dreams or these experiences, the more real they become, and then the more natural they become a part of the fabric of what we think about. And then I think it's one of the most empowering things that we can refer to. I mean, what Taj was saying about, wow, I just walked across the room and tried to flip on the light switch and it didn't work. Like, as simple as that sounds, it's so profound. I mean, what both of you have experienced, and I know what I've experienced, every time these stories are told, it reminds us, oh yeah, I am bigger than this. I'm connected to something far more beautiful and vast than what my human eyes see. Let me remember that as I go about my business and do my thing. But let me remember this and build a bridge to this so that I can become the 2.0 version of myself. That's what I think.
Yeah, and we can call that lucid living instead of lucid dreaming. It's lucid living.
Exactly. That's what I call a dream life. Like, when that's the essence of having a dream life. It's not about being unconscious. It's about being awake. That's one of the core principles of having a dream life.
Yeah. That's an interesting story you were telling there, Nyssa, because a friend of mine, when he was very young, he used to have dreams and visions that pretty much all the time they would come true. And then one day he had a dream about his best friend, and he dreamt that his best friend's father died in a car crash, and his father died in a blue car. And what happened was he told his best friend that this was going to happen. And then his friend said, "Oh, well, don't worry about it. My dad doesn't have a blue car, you know." And what happened was his dad was at work and his car broke down at work, and he borrowed his boss's car to go home. And his boss had a blue car, and that night, he had the accident exactly as he saw it in his dream, and he died. And then after that, it sort of like freaked out his best friend, because they didn't speak to each other for a while after that.
Oh my gosh! Why?
Because it was like he couldn't really understand how he knew what was going to happen. I think people when they don't understand something like that, they get scared because
spooked.
It's not normal. It doesn't fit the normal paradigm, day-to-day life kind of thing. So he got very scared, and they became friends again afterwards. But it was after that, when he told him, he never had those dreams again. He never had the visions, and he sort of worked out, or he figured that because he told him that was going to happen, that
he gift caused it or something.
That gift was like taken away from him in a way. That visions were taken away from him.
Yeah. And that's so sad. Thank you for sharing that. And I would so love to end that prejudice, or to have people know that anytime they get an insight, whether it's in a dream or in their waking life, it's always a gift in some way. It's all in how we frame it, because to know ahead of time in some way could be reassuring, like this was inevitable, like maybe this was supposed to happen, maybe this was on track. And the fact that you could see something before means that there's some larger play taking place, that there's not an accident. One of the stories that I just read about that I'm going to put in Chicken Soup for the Soul, we're editing it as we speak and having to comb through thousands of stories like this to pick the 101 that will end up in the book. It's very difficult, by the way. But one of the stories I loved is about this woman whose husband is on the brink of death. He's very ill, and he's probably going to die soon. And one morning he wakes up and she's right there looking at him, and he looks at her and he says, "Oh, not you again." And she goes, "Excuse me, I'm your wife who loves you. Like, why?" And he says, "Well, you got to understand that the dream I was just having, I was on the other side, and I was so happy, and my body didn't hurt anymore, and I was surrounded by so much beauty and love, and I thought that I had finally moved past this painful life, and I was so happy to be done, and I of course I'm going to miss you, but I really was bummed that I'm still here. So seeing you again was like, oh, I'm still alive, I'm still in this body." And because he shared that dream with his wife, when in 3 days later, when he did pass away, the family was so much more at peace because of that dream, because they knew that he was anticipating the dream. He was seeing that it was coming. And oh, by the way, in the dream, he said, "I was in a silver van with windows that were dark and I couldn't see out. And then, but I was in the van, but I was filled with all this beauty. And there was a little girl with dark curly hair in the van with me." So when the funeral happened for the husband, it was with a silver van, and it stood out because usually it's a black limousine or a black hearse. Have you ever seen a silver van carry away a dead body? It's very rare. And the funeral director's daughter sat in she was a little girl with dark curly hair who happened, she always was in the vans with the bodies because she would do prayers for them. That was like her job. So she was in the car anyway. So it was something that he had seen, and they were all very, the family left behind was of course sad to miss their loved one, but there was a sense of reassurance simply because that dream happened beforehand.
Kelly, we're just going to go to a commercial break. Can you stay on for another hour? Or...
Oh, I didn't know we were doing 2 hours. I can't do. I could.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Well, thanks for coming on, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, thank you so much. This was so much fun. Have a wonderful night. Sweet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio. Before we continue with the show, I'd just like to remind you that Revolution Radio is a listener-supported station. We do rely on your donations to keep us on air. So if you could please go to freedomslips.com, go to the Support Us section where you can make a donation, or you can buy one of our seed packs starting at only $60. All of our seeds contain non-GMO, non-hybrid heirloom seeds. Starting at $60, also $100, and our jumbo pack $200. You can make a one-time donation on the page, or join our monthly support club, where you can pay up to $100 a month, and starting at $10 a month every month. Now we'll return to the show. Nyssa, you still with me?
Yes, I'm still with you, Taj.
Yeah, I forgot that she could only stay on for an hour. Because she had. Yeah, sorry about that. But also, let me just plug my conference before we continue.
Oh, yes, Taj, please do.
So anyone who hasn't already heard, I'm holding a conference in Reading called AwakeOn. We've got several speakers, including my other co-host, Sarah Adams. And we also have Tony Topping, Thomas Sheridan, Maria Wheatley, Kieran Lee Perrin, and Ben Emlyn Jones. And you can buy tickets on the website right now. If you just go to awakeon.com, tickets are available right now. Tickets are £26 for the whole day. I'm hoping it's going to be a great day. It's on July the 15th. That's Saturday, the 15th of July. And the doors open at 10 a.m. And that's at Aldermaston Parish Hall in Aldermaston, Reading, UK. So that's for our UK listeners, really, unless you want to fly over from the States just for it. That's up to you.
Do you have a hotel nearby for people to stay?
There are hotels nearby. The speakers are all booked into a local hotel. There is food available at a local pub or local shops during the lunch, and it's all free. You can have as much tea and coffee as you like, because it's all free tea and coffee during the day. And I might even go the whole hog and supply some biscuits as well with it.
There's some hobnobs.
Yeah, I'll go to the cash and carry and buy a box of hobnobs. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting first hour with Kelly. She's it's a very interesting topic, really, dreams.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
Yeah, I did want to touch on a few other subjects that we didn't have time for, like stuff like the paranormal, because I know, things linked like if you dream about people who have passed away, whether that's them trying to communicate with you in your dreams, or if it's like you said, just another, like a part of yourself trying to communicate with you, through, the image of a loved one or something like that. Because I've had dreams like about my father who passed away a few years ago, and I had dreams for a while when I was going through a difficult period in my life. I wasn't sure like how it connected, like why my father was appearing in my dreams when I was having all these problems in my life, and whether he was trying to tell me something or trying to help me or trying to guide me, or I wasn't really sure, and I wanted to ask her about that. But I don't know what you think about that aspect, Nyssa.
Yeah, I think if you think about someone, whether they're past or if they're alive, their energy is attracted to your thoughts of them. I mean, you can think about someone and they'll phone you, or you'll bump into them, or it's just bringing that energy like towards you, isn't it? The same as when you were accidentally in Astral, that was still you, but you weren't in your body. If you see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, but I wasn't like sure if it was actually like if it was actually my father communicating with me in my dreams.
Yeah, you can ask for some kind of proof, some kind of evidence. You can ask, and they'll give you an image or something that only that person would know, kind of thing.
Yeah, I suppose people dream about like people. I mean, I'm dreaming about like friends and family, but that's not necessarily like they're not there. They could be like different aspects of me, or it could be like I'm dreaming about a friend because I'm worried about them, or there's something going on in their life, or whatever that is. Or, you could have also something I wanted to talk about was like shared dreams, because I've had a couple of like shared dreams with a friend of mine. So we've had the same dream, not at the same time, like probably a couple of weeks apart, and we've had the same.
Were you
same
seeing
dream.
the same dream from a different perspective, like it was a shared, like almost like virtual reality, but you've got two separate headsets on, that kind of thing? Or was it just the same dream, but you were both in the center of the dream? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, it was the same dream, but from different
perspectives.
Yeah, but
That's definitely a shared dream.
I didn't see them in the dream, but they had the same dream. You see what I'm saying? So they.
You didn't see each other. You didn't speak to each other in the dream.
No.
See, I've only ever done it twice, and both times I've had a conversation with the other person, and then they've told me. So I've been able to check it out that way. I think it's just we have shared consciousness on all levels. I think the same as we have shared consciousness right now, but we're like in, not asleep kind of thing. I think it works all the way through. But mostly I think people, when they're asleep, are in their own little worlds. I think it probably takes more energy to be able to share dreams, and you probably need some kind of psychic link with that person.
Yeah, I understand that. But it's also like, what was I going to say? Like, some people can have astral and they see people in astral, but then how do you know the difference between an astral and a dream? How do you know that, you're not just walking around in a dream, whereas, you might go in astral and meet somebody that in astral, but how do you know the difference between
what did they see you? If they saw you, that would sometimes you can I saw a friend of mine I was awake, and I saw them on my landing, and I knew that they weren't dead, so it wasn't some kind of paranormal thing, although it was paranormal. It wasn't that I was seeing a ghost or something. And it turned out that they were dreaming that they were on my landing. but they obviously weren't dreaming. They would obviously, because the time zones were different, so if they're half a world away, dreaming that they're on my landing and they're on my landing. But I could see them. But it's consciousness, isn't it? I suppose it's the whole thing with orbs. I mean, orbs are like just orbs, aren't they? But they're consciousness.
Yeah, but there's also the thing about time. Even though we may have had the same dream 2 weeks apart, because like in astral or whatever, there's no time. There's no.
Well, even in dreaming, you can have a dream that lasts, say, 10 minutes in this like fictional hypnotic time that we all run on.
Yeah.
That would last 10 minutes, but in your actual dream, that could last. It could feel like it's last 6 months. I've had dreams that have gone on and on and on and on, and then I've woken up and it's only been like, say 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
It just doesn't exist the way that it does here. Even when you're awake and you go out into nature, time doesn't exist the same as it does when you're at work looking at the clock. It's like a mass hypnosis that we've all bought into.
Yeah, everyone sort of got into like the clock. Like when you're at work and you're always looking at the clock. Watching at work.
Yeah, exactly, because that's where it exists. That consciousness, that state of consciousness, that's where the time that we know of when we think of that word, that's where that exists. Like when you have appointments or you have a schedule, or you have something like that. But you could use waking meditation techniques to slow time down if you need to. I've had that before where I've been late, I've been running out of time, and if you just like calm down a little bit and just do things one thing at a time, then you find you have more than enough time, because the way that you're the amount of stress you're going through will affect your perception of time. So if you're really stressed out, you're like, I haven't got enough time. you won't have enough time. But if you just kind of like, it's counterintuitive, but yeah, it does work. It does work.
I think it's also like when this is a common saying, like, time flies by when you're having fun, but when you're also
because it
around.
doesn't exist when you're when you're in the zone, when you're in that 0 point, that bliss point, that soul time. That's soul time, not physical 3D body time. 3D body time is completely different.
Yeah, but you're not like experiencing time in the same way when you're like out with friends having fun. You're not like looking at the clock all the time, like when you're at work. When you're at work, time drags on because you're always looking at the clock, and you just want the day to be over. But when you're out having fun, time seems to just go very quickly because you're not clock watching. You're with friends. Your consciousness.
Yeah, you're not in the hypnotic.
Your consciousness,
state,
experiences it in a different way. Just like like when I had a car accident, time slowed down because
it needed to keep you safe, because when the body does that so that you have enough time to help protect yourself.
A lot of people have that same experience when I suppose you could call it a near-death experience. Even though I didn't actually die, I was close to dying, and then your consciousness or whatever, your time just completely dissipates. There's like no time in a way. That's why everything
slows
appears,
right down.
It slows right down completely. It's very weird because I don't know if when people have had this experience, everything, it may last 10 seconds, but it feels like it lasted a lot longer than that.
Well, it's like when Kelly said dreams are on your side. Your consciousness is on your side. The whole point of the mass hypnosis of the clock watching time is to brainwash you into thinking time isn't on your side. When you have an accident, you forget that hypnosis. You're not under that hypnosis. The same as when you're out with your friends having fun, you forget that hypnosis. But when you have an accident, you forget that hypnosis, and your consciousness is then on your side, is protecting you, showing you, slowing things down so that you can see whether you're going to break your arm if you land in a certain way, or put your hand out in a certain way, or it is all on your side. But we're not taught that it's all on our side. We're taught that the world's out to get us, every man's for themselves. Time is something you can't fight against, until you have like an experience, like an accident or a near-death experience or a death experience, and then you find the truth that actually it's not all about suffering.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, their lives completely change after a near-death experience. Because their perspective has changed.
Definitely. And everyone, I haven't met anyone yet who has had the experience of it being worse. I haven't met anyone yet who's said, I'm scared to die because it's so much worse than being alive. It's terrible, it's full of fear and terrible things. And I've never ever heard anyone say that.
But I think it is something that people don't really talk about because it's scary.
It's scary because it's the unknown. It's the unknown. But it's like, it makes me think though of the whole experience makes me think of when people go parachuting. It's not the actual falling 10,000 feet that they find scary. The thing they find scary is jumping out of the plane. That's the bit that they find scary. Now, logically, they should be more scared about falling than jumping, than leaving the plane. Do you see what I mean? And it's exactly the same principle. Once you're falling, it's fine. It's the jumping out of the plane, because it's the swapping one mindset from another, going from the known to the unknown.
That's true. Doing something for the first time is especially something like that where it's quite dangerous, we've all
died before countless times. We die and come back, die and come back, die and come back. but we forget it all. We do, you know. So yeah, it would feel like the first time, I guess.
Yeah,
But
but
it's very familiar. So when when you cross over, it's very familiar. It's more familiar there than it is here. You spend more time over there than you do here. Here is like coming to work. It's like coming to work 5 days a week, and then sort. Do you see what I mean? It's
yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah.
But
That's
if
home. That's home. This is some kind of spiritual boot camp that we're in.
I
That's
guess,
why people get depressed and suicidal and homesick, and because this isn't home for a soul.
yeah, I guess if you remembered all your previous lives, you remembered how you died, you wouldn't be so afraid of death because you've already experienced it hundreds of times before, and you know there's nothing to be scared of.
Yeah, I mean, maybe people should try and I don't know, have regression for their past lives. I mean, a lot of people probably aren't open to their concept.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked into regression, but it's also something maybe I'm scared of. I'm scared of finding out,
Well, if you don't feel ready, then you're probably not ready. There's probably a reason. Most people that I've met who've had that sensation, it turned out that when they did actually go, that they had a massive trauma in their last life, and when they came back, they didn't want to even entertain that idea of reincarnation or look into anything, because their amnesia was protecting them. It was helping them. It was, as we say, consciousness is on your side, so it was there to help them, to save them from reliving it. So you might find maybe this life is a healing process. So there's
Right.
no need to remember in this life, because it might just be a healing process, and maybe in your next life then you'll feel more, you'll want to sort of face all that kind of stuff because you would have gone through the healing.
Yeah, I did contact someone last year and sort of started to think about doing regression, and then I sort of put it off, and I thought I wasn't ready, or I wasn't ready to, it's almost like it is the unknown. Like, what if I find out I was an axe murderer, or what do I find out if I did something bad in my previous life, or what do I, until you go through the process, you're not going to know. But
Well, what you'll find is the lives you remember in this life, because we've had so many, it's too many to remember all at once. What will happen is the lives that come out will be the ones relevant to the lesson that you're learning in this life. So you'll probably only remember 2 or 3, but those lessons of those lives will be applicable to this life. So it really is just a soul progression and just learning. So it could help you to decode the lesson that you're trying to learn in this life, by assessing those lives. But everyone, because it's about taking a situation and coming back over and over again to experience that situation from all perspectives, everyone in the room. So one life you'll be the victim, next life you'll be the perpetrator, next life you'll be the observer, and so we've all, it's not a case of some people have been axe murderers and some people haven't. At some point we probably all have had that experience, because it's all part of experiencing a situation from all perspectives. Because at the end of the day, because it's a holographic fractal universe, it's all about the universe shattering itself into a billion pieces, which is our consciousness, to observe itself, to learn about itself, because when it's whole, it can't observe itself or learn about itself. It's pointless. It doesn't exist. It'd be nothing. So in order to exist, it has to have consciousness. In order to have consciousness, it has to bounce that consciousness off of something, like a mirror. But it can't do that without an opposition. So you can't have a victim without a perpetrator. And you can't understand one perspective without the other. And the universe is neutral. It doesn't say that's a bad person, that's a good person. It doesn't see it like that.
it's like that movie Cloud Atlas.
Yes,
where do
exactly.
you remember that movie? Where
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the same,
exactly.
they go back like 200, 300 years, and they show their different lives. In one life, I think it's got Tom Hanks in it. In like one life, he's like a bad person, a really bad person, and it's got like a future version of himself where he's living on an island, and was it Halle Berry comes along, and it's like a future
Yeah,
version of himself where he's a good person, and like he's trying to protect his family. His family's been murdered, and all this kind of stuff. And it's
yeah.
just different experiences. You
Mm.
have
Well,
you're experiencing, I
yeah.
guess, yeah,
Well,
different
it's
reality, different versions.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
quite
It's
hard to
ultimate.
explain, but yeah,
Yeah, it's so ultimately, if you experience every single shard of the experience of the universe that has split itself into a million pieces, you are remembering, which is the opposite of dismember, which is when someone gets cut into pieces. So you're putting yourself back together. The universe is putting itself back together to remember, to become all those little pieces in which would then become like a completely non-judgmental experience, would understand everything, because it's a quest, it's a universal quest
mm,
of understanding, just to understand. You can't do that if you haven't experienced it all. If you're a judge and you have someone who's burgled a house and he's 14 and he I don't know, maybe burgling a house is a bad example. He's stolen medicine from a pharmacy because his diabetic dad can't afford the medicine. If the judge has never been in that position before, then how is he qualified to properly judge the situation? He
right,
probably isn't. So that is why, if the universe is going to be qualified to judge it, well, not even judge itself, it's just understanding, because it's neutral energy, but it has to have seen everything from all different angles. Um, but the trouble is, this planet is stuck on a destruction creation cycle on all levels. So that's what is playing out. So you have the sort of like, that's what the whole birth, death, murder, that kind of stuff playing out over and over again.
yeah.
But as
But then yeah,
consciousness rises, then um it's I mean it is getting better slowly.
is it?
Well, slowly. I mean, if we're talking about it, then it can't be it can't be too bad.
I don't know. Everyone keeps talking about World War III and all this kind of stuff, but I don't want to get into that. But
No.
I think it sort of makes sense that if you live hundreds of lives, that every life's going to be different. You're going to have different perspectives, and then you're going to understand,
Yeah.
every perspective as far as your experience goes. Anyway,
Yeah, and then
um,
you're done. I mean, the Vedics say that the only way to stop yourself from reincarnating is to have no desires, because it is the desire which brings you back into. So if there's an experience you haven't explored, that you'll have an unconscious desire to think, you'll think, I wonder what it's like to, and then, you're back again. It's like trying that out. So the only way, I mean, it's written in like Sanskrit, but in English it's translated to, if you want to not come back being reincarnated, then you have to have zero desires, which is impossible. That's
right.
impossible.
So you can't just have like the thoughts, I don't ever want to come back here again, and it happens. It just happens.
I think you can. I think you can. There are certain birth charts, which indicate that a person is on their last cycle,
All
and
right.
that they can go. But that means that they've worked their way around the whole chart. They've worked their way. They have picked up everything they need to know.
Right.
Um,
But there's no way of getting out of that. There's no way of saying, "Oh, I haven't learned everything, but I don't want to come back here again. I just want to like move on and do something else. I don't want this experience anymore."
well, that's an
Or,
interesting question, isn't it? Because it is a free will universe.
yeah.
But I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that written anywhere, and from what I've kind of gathered, I think you have to kind of run its course. It kind of runs its course because your soul hungers to know it all before it moves on.
Right.
But that's definitely a question worth exploring. But and some people say, if you die on a planet, you're trapped in that planet's. You're going to keep reincarnating on that planet until your cycles are complete. So that could be true as well. But it's worth exploring.
Yeah, but then there's the question like, how do you know you've got to the point where you know everything you need to know? How many lifetimes you've lived, 1,000 lifetimes, and you now have every perspective you need to know. How do you know that, or who decides? Okay, this soul is now ready to move on. Is that like something to do with Source or God, or God says, "Oh, the soul is ready. He can move on. He's learnt everything he needs to learn."
I think if you got to that point, you wouldn't even ask a question. I think it would just be a knowing, and it would just be you just move on. I think you just know. Right. It would just be a knowing, a really deep, like knowing that you'd done it all.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. But then that goes into things like what is the soul? And I mean, some people say their soul's not from here, they're not human. And if you have an alien soul or whatever, maybe your experience is different. Well, your experience would be different, I guess, and therefore maybe the same rules don't apply. I don't know. Or maybe you've lived a life here, you've lived a life on Mars, you've lived a life somewhere else. Do the rules change?
Yeah, well, because it's a quantum omniverse, there's parts of you living on all different timelines, all different planets, all different expressions of you, all simultaneously existing. Yeah, so it's quite complicated, like from that aspect.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm not going to get into timelines because that's going to that's going to complicate things even more, I think. Because I have like, talking about dreams again, go back to dreams. I have dreams where I dream about other realities or other timelines. So I had a dream where I never left a job that I left 3-4 years ago, and I'm still there now. I'm still working there, and I know it's new memories because I'm doing stuff at that job that I never did when I was there. So I know it's not memories from when I was working there. It's another reality.
That gets into the quantum, because I had a very strange experience a few years ago. My house got burgled while I was on holiday, and one of the things that got stolen was a really nice bracelet that my mother had bought me, and it was gold and it had diamonds in it. It was very expensive, and it was one of the first things to get stolen. Years and years later, probably about 7 years later, I was then living in a house. I'd lived in like 3 houses in between the one that had got robbed to like the current one, and I was tidying up, and underneath the dining room table I found that bracelet, and there was absolutely no logical explanation for that whatsoever. And the time that I found it, I was actually thinking about that whole situation, and I was thinking, sort of like, what if that robbery hadn't have happened, and all that kind. I was thinking about it, and it just appeared, and I thought that's some kind of weird quantum. People who do a lot of manifestation work report all kinds of strange things happening, because they're using their vibration to jump timelines, to pull in things from other timelines. And this isn't a fairy tale, because if you listen to the TED talk that the guy who invented the D-Wave quantum computer talks about, his entire principle is taking resources from the closest parallel Earth that he can find and bringing them here, which sounds horrific to me because it could have all sorts of consequences. But anyway, this is what these manifestation practitioners are demonstrating, because they are projecting a frequency which is attracting what they want, but what they want is coming from a reality they're not experiencing, because they wouldn't want it if they were experiencing it. So they're pulling it from another timeline, because we're jumping all the time. In order for a D-wave computer to function, they have to freeze the particles which hop timelines really, really, really cold. That, that's why it makes the noise that it does. It's like a heartbeat. They have to freeze it so that it stays still, so then they can attract these other timelines, these other quantum timelines to the particles, instead of the particles jumping the timelines. So we're doing that all the time. We don't exist. We don't exist in a linear fashion. Our particles are different all the time, because we're bouncing around timelines depending on your frequency. That's why they say, if there's something you want out of life, act as though you already have it, because then you jump to the timeline where you do have it, and then it will come to you, because anything that's blocking it in this timeline will just vanish. Any kind of like belief systems, unconscious belief systems, because it's the unconscious mind that is running the show.
So do you think you actually manifested that bracelet then?
I don't know what that was about. I don't know. I'm still wondering about that to this day. I don't know what that. I'm not sure, to be honest. It's just extra weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, there is a thing like about timelines. Like most people think that to change a timeline, you need something, like CERN or some kind of particle accelerator or some massive machine to change timelines. But the thing is, we're changing timelines every single day.
Yes, we are the CERN. We are the timeline.
What people don't understand is
they don't understand, and that's why this news, just like putting one negative idea out there, if it gets into enough brains, all of a sudden you've changed the little subtle things that change timelines. And if you can get in, because we have something like the collective unconscious, that's the reason why we have all of a sudden a color will be in fashion, all of a sudden a certain anything will be in fashion, because everyone shares the collective unconscious. And if you can seed a thought into enough people's minds, then they'll all go in one direction, and then that's it. You've got a timeline. But it's the simplest little things. It's not like one big event. People think that timeline engineering is like 9/11 or something like that, which that will change the course of history. But on a day-to-day basis, it's what you're brainwashed with every day. It's what you see every day on the telly. It's what everyone believes unconsciously. So it's the tiny little things that keep everything going. I think in marketing they call it nudging. Is the key word, is where they basically put in suggestion, like hypnotic suggestion into adverts to they call it nudging, and it's just to sort of guide people towards like one thing or the other.
That's also like where they repeat the same thing 3 times in adverts. So it programs you, I guess, doesn't it? It's like subconscious programming. When you repeat something 3 times, it's almost like it's embedded in your memory then. But,
repetition.
Repetition. Yeah, I think I'm sure somebody said something like, if you repeat a lie so many times, it becomes true, because everyone believes it. Everyone believes it. If you say, if you say a lie enough times, everyone will believe it, and the lie just disappears, kind of thing. It just, no one questions it. That's the problem with a lot of society today. Is people don't question everything. They just believe what they listen to on the radio or the news. It's
easier for them. It's easier for them. Because they did a study of cults and they found that the more someone had invested into a belief system, the more willing they were to basically defy reality to defend it. Because in cults where they were saying the world's going to end on Sunday, the world's going to end on Sunday, when the world didn't end on Sunday, the cult members who had invested their I don't know, their whole life was in the cult, their family lived in the cult, they had clothes from the cult, their whole life depended on it, they would have cognitive dissonance, and they would say, oh no, yeah, it was supposed to end, but such and such did a good deed, so it didn't. And then other people who weren't invested in the cult, who weren't connected to the cult, who were just there, would say, oh, this is rubbish, like, you've just lied to us, this is rubbish. They had no reason to have cognitive dissonance. Now, in day-to-day life, if all your friends and family believe one thing, and you know that if you go against the grain, you're going to be ostracized, then you have cognitive dissonance, to protect yourself. And to keep the status quo.
Yeah, I mean, the whole cult thing sort of reminds me, a bit funny really, it reminds me of 2012, because I think that was all one big cult thing, everyone believed the world was going to end on December the 21st, 2012, and so many people bought into that, you almost thought like it was going to manifest in a way. They were going to like manifest, the end of the world, on that date, because the Mayan calendar predicted it, so it must be true. It's a bit funny looking back at it now, that was like almost 5 years ago now, but that was like that entire year was like massive sort of like this is going to happen on this day, and people were like selling their houses, they were like maxing out their credit cards and thinking thinking the world was going to end, and then all of a sudden it didn't end, and they had these massive bills to pay, and they had to like get on with the rest of their lives when they thought that they didn't have to deal with it. That's taking it to the extreme, really. But it's the same sort of thing as a cult in a way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's always something like that happening. There's always someone telling you that the world's going to end. That there's always just to keep the vibration going of always expecting something to be coming. There's always something coming, because it's a primal, it triggers people. Yeah, it triggers people in a primal way. It's kind of like, it's coming. And so people are like, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and most people have tiny little things that they are already using that mindset for. They're thinking, oh, what if I'm late for work in the morning and I lose my job? What if I can't pay the rent this month? What if this? What if that? Most people are living in that state of consciousness. But when you're in that state of consciousness, everything is shut down. You're not going to be able to lucid dream, that's for sure. You're not going to be able to astral. You're not going to be able to have premonitions. You're not going to be able to like have synchronicities or live in a flow, because you're in that and you will ultimately get anxiety and depression, because it's the only response your body can have if it's in constant fear mode.
But I think most everybody, I think, their day-to-day lives are living in fear as to, I've got to pay the bills, am I going to lose my job? And, debt, debt's a big one these days. Everyone's in debt. It's all to keep us in that low vibrational state, to keep us in fear. You see it, on the news, the TV, everything, things like, attacks and false flags and ISIS and, Trump and what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in North Korea and what's going on in China. I mean, you could like go on and on and on. If you worried about every single thing that was going on in the world right now, you wouldn't be able to function really as a human being. You'd be sat there thinking, oh my God, China's going to attack. Oh my God, North Korea's going to launch a nuke. Oh my God, the Middle East is going to blow up. I mean, it's a difficult one to deal with. And so I think that the best thing to do, as far as I'm concerned, is sort of like disengage from the news a lot of the time. I do watch the news. I don't watch the news every day. I watch it, maybe once a week, and just to see what's going on, but I don't engage with it. I don't like go on YouTube for hours trying to find out what Trump is doing at the moment, or trying to find out what's happening in North Korea. Are we gonna blow each other up next week, or stuff like that. But people get into this mindset. I think a lot of people, even in the awake community, people who think they're awake, but they spend a lot of time on this fear porn, which I don't really understand.
Yeah, it's addictive. I think people get addicted to the adrenaline, and they get addicted to the mindset because it is a frozen mindset. It's an excuse for procrastination, because it's like, well, they think that they're doing something, but actually they're not. They're just sitting there watching all this stuff. They're not actually. You're much better to figure out what it is that makes you happy in life. What it is when you do it. Time doesn't exist. Basically, what are you here for? And live that, because not only will that help you, that will help everyone that is connected to that you were meant to help when you came here with that mission. And then that spreads, and then everyone's on the correct timeline.
The problem is, like, whenever I go on Facebook, I don't like people who always post negative stuff, always post fear porn. They always post, oh, this is happening, Trump's going to blow this place up, or that's going to happen in North Korea. They're always posting constantly, like, negative, to keep you in a kind of state of fear, basically. And I don't like looking at that stuff. I don't like reading that stuff. I'd rather, sometimes I want to, like, shout at these people and say, what are you doing? What the effing hell are you doing? Why don't you try doing a bit of work on yourself, trying to concentrate on the positive things that are going on in your life, rather than spreading, more fear. But it's a difficult balance, I think, because you have to be aware of what's going on.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, you have to be aware.
There's no point ignoring those things as long as you're aware of them, but you don't want to be constantly bombarded with all that stuff. I think.
Yeah, well, the Buddhists have a saying. They say, if you're worried about something, if you can fix it, then fix it. If there's something you can do, do it. If there isn't, then there isn't. You can't worry about it. If there's nothing, you can worry about it, but if there's nothing you can do, then ultimately it's not going to help anyone.
Yeah, well, there's nothing I can do if North Korea blows up the world. So why am I focusing my energy on that, or why am I focusing my energy on Trump and what Trump's doing? I'm not going to be able to influence what he does. So there's nothing I can do about that. So
also, if you're channeling energy into that, then that's going to help manifest that timeline. If everyone's focused on something like that happening, then the chances of it happening will skyrocket, because that's what everyone's waiting for. That's what everyone expects.
Yeah, that's a bit like, what's that movie where the guy creates a machine that can see the future, and by being able to see the future, they actually manifest the future. So they see World War III is going to happen. So what happens is they manifest World War III.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's
it's like
it's
a paradigm. Yeah. It's like a paradox. If they hadn't created the time machine, if they hadn't created the machine to view the future in the first place, they wouldn't have seen that World War III is going to happen, and World War III wouldn't have happened. But then it's
exactly. There's a movie. Yeah, there's a movie called I think it's called Premonitions with Sandra Bullock, and she sees that her husband's going to get killed. He's going to be hit by a lorry, and the whole film she is basically chasing her tail, because she's trying to do everything she can to stop it from happening, but everything that she does is bringing it closer to happening, and then in the end it does happen because of everything that she's done to stop it from happening. So it's the same kind of principle. So basically, if you want to change something, you have to focus on something else, not on the actual thing.
Yeah. Oh, that movie was Paycheck. I just Googled it.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen that one yet. Is that the new one?
No, it's quite it's 2012, I think. Basically, a guy is an inventor. He creates a machine that can view the future, and what happens is he gets paid, and they wipe his memory, but he leaves himself clues, little clues as to what he did. The fact that he created a machine that can see the future. So he gives himself like a lottery ticket, and he wins. He gets the right numbers. He gives himself little clues to go back and work out what he did and try and stop it. But yeah, it's a weird one. That's another thing I'm quite fascinated about time travel, and whether that's happening, whether people are going back and messing with our past, and how you would even know, if somebody has like gone. But this goes into things like the Mandela effect. Everyone.
I was gonna say, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring that up because.
No, well, I won't go into it too much, but everyone remembers that event differently, but everyone remembers.
Well, it's funny though with the Mandela effect, because the Google searches are still there to show the stats on the Google searches are there to show that more people remember the old names of films and things than the new ones. And you think, well, how could they change the titles of the films on the actual boxes? This is insane.
Yeah, that's like
absolutely
that Bernstein.
Yeah, well,
Bernstein
interview
thing, isn't it?
with a vampire, or interview with the vampire, or Sex in the City, or Sex and the City, and things like that. And and you think, well, how would they change? Like, why would I remember? And how, and it got to the point where you're thinking, well, there are people. Is there two? Do you know what really bugs me about it is the fact that there's only two options. There's only every single Mandela effect you can find, there's only two options, which means that you were dealing with two separate timelines, basically, that have like collided. Right. And there's people that are native to this timeline and people that at some point have ended up merged with it from somewhere else. Quite a few people remember chocolate Pringles in 2006, and I'm really, really disappointed that I missed out on that one, because I
really I don't remember chocolate Pringles.
Exactly, neither do I. That's my point. I'm disappointed I missed out on that one, because there's a lot of people that remember that happening, but that is not my timeline, because I don't remember chocolate Pringles.
I would have, I would definitely have remembered chocolate Pringles, trust me.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I would probably still have a stockpile of them by now, probably.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah, the Mandela effect. Yeah, I don't want to get into that too much, but time travel. I think in a way, time travel does exist, but not in the way that most people think. You don't jump in a time machine and go back in time like you see on TV movies.
Yeah, we're time traveling all the time. I mean, everyone right now is probably either thinking about the future, basically living in the future, or they're living in the past because their mind is in the past or the future. Like, no one is living in the present, the now. Everyone's either thinking, oh, I'm going to do this tomorrow, or I'm going to do that tomorrow, or why did I do that yesterday, or So we're kind of time traveling from that aspect all the time.
Yeah, well, this may link into things like what Tesla was doing, and he's always said that if you find the secret to number 369, you will open up the secrets of the universe. And I think that's related to time travel and being able to see the future, and because the whole universe works on numbers. If you're
sacred geometry.
So you can predict using numbers. The future events and stuff like that. So
I mean, the film Knowing shows that quite well. It's with the whole aspect of numerology. Which also ties in with astrology. There's a lot of it's the one and the same, really. But it's that the whole mechanics of the universe, this universe anyway, is math, which sucks because I hate math. But that is what this universe runs off of,
Yeah, but then I guess you could say, well, if this universe works on numbers, then all the parallel universes must be, the same. I guess not, or not. Like if we're living in like parallel timelines, it must all work the same way, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't work, or not. How would that work? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're talking about the same universe but parallel timelines that have just shot off like branches of a tree from like when you made like a different decision, it's a bit like in the film Men in Black 3 when I've forgotten his name now, but the guy who can see his fourth dimensional and he sees all the different timelines, and he says to Will Smith, "Did you have chocolate milk this morning?"
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
it sounds mundane, but the thing is that choice that he made to have chocolate milk or not have chocolate milk meant someone was either going to be shot or not shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but yeah, that was all in the same universe. It was just different timelines.
Yeah, but then you can go into people like we were talking about in dreams. People can predict the future in their dreams. So how does that work? They must be tuning into something
because it all happens. Time all happens at the same time. It's already happened.
Yeah, but they are just more tuned into it, are they? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you're on, it's like train tracks. When you're on a certain path, a certain timeline, then certain people can see. They have the perspective to see where those tracks are going to go.
Right.
And then when you change track, but then you could say that's you could go for like a reading, a tarot reading or a psychic reading, and they'll tell you right now, if you don't change anything, if you stay on this track, this, that, and that will happen. But then if you walk out of that, if you walk out of that reading and you do something which is going to completely change your energy, you're on a different train track. And so with the reading you've just had, it's completely void because you've just changed train tracks. Do you see what I mean? So we're jumping all the time. So it's about holding the space and frequency that you want to see manifest and having the vision of where you want your train tracks to go, where you want to go, know where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. I guess in a way, when you have a reading, you're being told something, you then sort of like manifest it, kind of thing, in a way. If you're told you're going to be in a relationship 3 months, you almost like you manifest that over 3 months, and you are in a relationship.
Yeah, because you focus on it.
Well, that's the end of the show. I just want to thank Kelly Sullivan Walden for coming on earlier, and thank you, Nyssa, for talking to me for the last hour. It was an interesting discussion.
Thank you, Tajs. Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
And we'll be back same time next week, 11 o'clock UK time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.